Hello, we are presenting over Chapter 7 of the Social Psychology of Disability book. My name is Allison Schacht.
I'm Samantha Shamhart.
And I'm Jerome Sheriff.
So Dunn essentially starts the book describing positive psychology, and essentially she's saying that it aims to identify, understand, and apply human strength to help people psychologically and physically, which is basically focusing on the potential that the individual still possesses rather than the negatives that someone lost because of a disability, which can be used through positive emotions, positive actions, and really utilizing the world around them. And so throughout this chapter, it's broken up into 3 different topics of discussion. So the first one is to apply and discuss and apply the 3 levels of positive psychology and discuss how that works with the adapting to the world of disability. Then she discusses to consider the nature of a good life, and that means a good life after disability and what a good life entails. And then the third is to change the values, and that means to change the values and the ultimate life goals that an individual has in their head and to adapt it to a life with disability. And so then we talked about how social psychology and rehabilitative psychology share foundations and theoretical views with Lewinian foundation. And so these are the 4 main points of shared topics. And these will be helpful when you consider how positive levels of analysis can be used to promote a better quality of life for people with disability and to enhance the rehabilitative process afterwards. And so there's essentially 3 levels of positive psychology level of analysis, and they're broken up into subjective, individual, and group level analysis. And so the subjective level analysis is a personal outlook on your past, present, and future, and it's a very subjective level of viewing and how you perceive the world. Individual is your stability based on your positive personality traits, and so how you, all the different personality traits that are used to actively work to have a good life. And then group deals with the group and their internal processes and basically recognizing how important different communities and different institutions affect each individual's life.
The next section that Dunn discusses in Chapter 7 is resilience and disability. And to quickly define resilience, it is one's ability to adapt to trauma or other adverse circumstances. And this should be treated distinct from but related to coping. But much of past research on resilience is dominantly based on children and adolescents in impossible circumstances. However, although there's minimal research on resilience and disability, there's reasoning behind establishing a connection between the two, such as the link between self-esteem and acceptance of the reality of a disability. And mentioned previously in her book in Chapter 5, she said that it is psychologically beneficial of adopting a coping behavior rather than succumbing to a framework a succumbing framework. She also discusses protective and risk factors that can help predict resilience. These protective factors are environmental, social, and psychological. Some examples of these include community resources, safe housing, secure income, stable employment, healthy self-esteem. And then the risk factors would essentially be the opposite of these factors, i.e. unemployment, unstable family, unsafe housing, and then some of the other psychological factors include stress, poor communication skills, and poor physical health. The next section she discusses in Chapter 7 is living the good life with disability, which is somewhat related to resilience in the sense that resilience is becoming stronger in the face of adversity, whereas living the good life is having a positive outlook in the face of adversity. So she defines the good life as one that is personally satisfying, fulfilling, and meaningful. And then she goes on to separate the good life into 3 different levels. So the first she gives is a pleasant life, which is when there's frequent presence of positive emotions, and then the good life builds up off of the pleasant life, which is when one utilizes their character strengths to exercise their efficacy in the world, therefore remaining true to themselves and growing as a person. And then the last step would be acquiring a meaningful life, which is a combination of a pleasant life and a good life. And it builds upon the good life in the sense that a person's strengths and virtues are channeled to help the community rather than just themselves. She also discusses 3 dimensions that characterize the good life, and these are positive connections to people, positive personal qualities, and life regulation qualities. Lastly in the chapter, just to quickly quote, she says, attending to creature comforts and special pleasures also helps regulate the daily life by relieving stress and fostering positive anticipation in PWDs. This essentially is saying that if PWDs are distracted by hobbies or special pleasures, which I'll explain later, this can help them achieve living the good life. Creature comforts are hobbies, eating enjoyable foods, napping or relaxing, and special pleasures are enjoying the pleasurable events that are linked to disability, which is a somewhat strange concept, but
Okay. So the last topic discussed in Chapter 7 was value changes after disability, and this is important because research shows that people with disability judge better to the disability when they accept loss of what the disability entails and focusing more on what's important to them. And positive psychology helped with this transition because it helped people with disability focus on things that are important to them. Accomplishing value change consists of 4 independent activities. The first is enlarging the scope of values, so basically focus on things that are important to the individual and things that still can be accomplished, so placing higher values of things that the individual can accomplish. Second, subordinating physical concerns related to the to other values, so basically focusing less on physical appearance and more on interests, personalities, and skills. The third is containing the spread effect, so basically not allowing the disability to spread to other domains such as cognitive, such as speech and memory. The last skill is transforming comparative status values to asset values. Is not comparing oneself to another. So research shows that people with disabilities that compare themselves to people without a disability have lower self-esteem and lower self-value. A study was done by Rokesh that studied patients that just received diagnosis of cancer, and their values were examined, and they showed that 27 out of 36 values changed, and the patients that were diagnosed with cancer. So 16 values increased while 11 values decreased. And this just shows how disabilities affect the values of their self and how society views it as well. So in conclusion, social psychology, this chapter helped analyze how social psychology of disability is developing a more positive direction to help people with disability live a more meaningful life. Additionally, positive and rehabilitation psychology is supporting people with disability by allowing them to attain positive life skills, values, and habits in order to live a more positive and fulfilling life. So we want to thank you all for watching, and we hope you all enjoyed the video.